Gerard Gibbard and Rhino in the studio on this
Friday Eve.
And now joining us, the CEO of Empower Mississippi, Mr. Grant Callen. Afternoon, Grant.
Hello. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Wanted to get you in to talk to us a little bit about the fine work that is being done by your organization. Been around since 2014 now.
That's right.
Full disclosure, and the audience knows this, I've been affiliated as a board member of the organization now since the inception, proudly and honorably. It really has been fun, and I think we're making a difference, is what I believe, in the state of Mississippi, and I think we're advocating for really fantastic policy that is positively affecting the lives of Mississippians. And one recent accomplishment, legislative accomplishment, certainly this past year, was SB 2795. The governor just signed that, and I think it's fair to say we weren't sure if the governor was going to sign that one. It was not really fully understood, his position there, and he obviously is the governor on some sort of controversial, sometimes anything dealing with criminal justice and law enforcement, always controversial, and this one, I think you could say, probably fit into that category. This one affected parole, specifically parole reform and incarceration. But the governor did ultimately sign it.
Yeah.
So it's now built, so a law, I should say. You want to give us a quick rundown of exactly what that means?
Well, and let me start by saying we're proud to have you on the board.
Well, thank you.
We appreciate your service, and our board is Mississippians from different parts of the state.
Yep.
So we were pretty excited about this bill. This is a significant step in the right direction. As you know, we have three areas of policy focus: education, work, and justice. And one of the reasons justice is so important is because it's such a foundational American thing that we have justice for all. And it's critically important that our system of justice treats everybody fairly, and that we punish at times where it's needed, that we keep our community safe. Public safety has to be paramount, but that the punishment fits the crime. And so this initiative, this parole reform bill, Senate Bill 2795, was brought forth, and it really arose out of the problems with our justice system. We're the second highest incarcerated state in the country, which just means as a percentage of our population, we've got more people behind bars than any state but Louisiana.
Right.
And this bill was needed because 2/3 of the people currently behind bars are not eligible for parole. And a lot of states, often Republican states like Texas and Tennessee and Alabama, have figured out sometimes these sentences are too long and too harsh. And so this bill would allow about 2,000 inmates that were previously not eligible for parole to be made eligible. Now, it's important, eligible for parole does not mean automatic release.
Right.
It simply means the parole board gets to look at their situation and make a decision about, are they a public safety threat or not. And, you know, a sizable percentage of the people that come before them, they look at and go, yeah, I don't think they're ready to get out.
Yeah.
But for people, particularly nonviolent, who have served a long term, this bill would give them the opportunity to go before the parole board and see if they're ready for a second chance, which is really in the interest of all of us, because taxpayers have to pay to house and care for somebody if they're behind bars. We'd rather them be a productive citizen working as long as we keep our communities safe.
Yeah, it's expensive, and plus our prisons are overcrowded and understaffed, and so it just seems to make sense. And let's just be clear about that again, and you perfectly stated it, Grant, is that this does not trigger automatic release. This does not change the sentencing. It simply allows the possibility of parole, but that is at the discretion of the parole board. That is their function in the system. So how many are on the parole board exactly, you know?
So I think there are 5. That's a good question. I had the opportunity to interview a couple of the parole board members recently, and learn more about how they do their work. And really, it's a rigorous, thorough process where each case comes before them individually. They're not making decisions with a broad brush strokes. They're looking at each case individually. They're looking at basically, what was their crime in the first place? How long have they served? What kind of an inmate have they been? Have they been a model citizen while they've been behind bars? Are they taking steps to be rehabilitated? Have they taken advantage of educational opportunities and job training opportunities? And then one of the things I didn't realize until this conversation is how much they look into whether they have a plan for when they come out. Where are they going to stay?
Yeah.
What kind of jobs are they going to be looking for? And there's a recognition that one of the most important things we can do to keep somebody from committing another crime is make sure they get plugged into a job.
Yeah. And that's part of the process and part of policies for which the organization has advocated. We should also point out that there are some situations, right, under present law where a nonviolent offender, absent this recently passed legislation, could be incarcerated for life without an opportunity for parole. I mean, that was the central problem, right? We're talking about a nonviolent offender here.
Correct. So in some cases, the way that has happened is because of our habitual enhancements. And this law didn't actually fix that. There's still more work to be done on that front.
Okay.
But the habitual enhancement is Mississippi's 3 strikes policy. And so, again, the challenge here is somebody who has already served their time. And because this is not their first offense, there were a couple of situations where a gentleman named James Vardaman, who literally was caught with, I think it was 6 boxes of Sudafed, got a life sentence for the rest of his life without the possibility of parole because it was his third offense. Mm-hmm. He's already paid his debt to society for his 2 priors, but because this was his third, he went away for life. So part of this is recognizing that we have a drug problem, and we've got to be able to distinguish between people who simply have an addiction issue and somebody who is a hardened criminal. And if you take somebody who's really a good citizen who has an addiction issue and you throw them behind bars for a decade or 2 and you put them shoulder to shoulder with people that are hardened criminals, they're not coming out better. They're coming out worse. And so there's many facets to this challenge, but we've got to make a distinction between people that are truly a threat, truly dangerous to society, and those that aren't.
And that's what we rely on the parole system for, and the parole board.
So this just gave them another tool because they couldn't review the cases of people that weren't even parole eligible.
Yeah, never come before.
That's right. So this allows a new category, a number of new categories to come before them and give the opportunity of a second chance if the parole board deems that they're not a threat.
Yeah. Let's talk about a couple of the other areas that are within the Empower mission.
Yeah.
Let's start with work. So that's kind of a new one for us. We started out with education. That was our primary focus. And then we moved and added criminal justice reform. And CJR is one of those things that is broadly defined, shall we say. I don't know that there's any consistent terminology or consistent definition for it, but we've discussed that. Let's talk about work. What are we doing there?
Well, and how these all fit together for us is simple.
Okay.
Everybody in the state needs the opportunity to have a great education so that they can find meaningful work and so that they stay out of the justice system.
Yeah.
And the work piece is really a critical component. It's critical that you get plugged into work, not just because people need to be able to provide for their family and get a paycheck, but work provides so much meaning and purpose and reason to get out of bed. And
Sure.
It's needed when you get out of school, but it's also critically needed for people when you're coming out of prison to get plugged back in, as we've talked about. So our work effort is really about 2 global metrics that we're looking at. The first one is our workforce participation rate. Once again, we're the second worst in the nation, this time behind West Virginia, in terms of the percentage of people that are in the workforce.
Hold your thought. We got a break right here. I want you to come back and finish the discussion at work, and then we'll talk about education. We'll talk about a pretty cool event coming up too, right?
Sounds